He stood knee-deep in water, and the water did not move, not because he commanded it to freeze, but because it was afraid of him. Kairu was 22 years old when he entered the S-rank rift alone. No team, no backup, just him and thousands of tons of water filling the dungeon from the bottom up. As if the dungeon itself was trying to bury him, guilds watched from the surface through monitors. No one believed he would walk out. Some were already placing bets on when he would die. They didn't know one thing. Kairu wasn't afraid of water. He was only afraid of one thing, becoming who he was 3 years ago. Weak, invisible, nobody. And that fear was exactly why the water was afraid of him. 3 years ago, Kairu was an E-rank hunter, the lowest rank. The kind the hunter system politely calls support class, and behind closed doors, deadweight. He didn't kill monsters. He carried water and bandages for those who did. The pay was next to nothing. People looked through him. At briefings he always stood against the wall, not because there was no room, but because no one thought to offer him a chair. Once, the leader of his team mixed up his name with another porter's, right before entering a rift, and no one corrected it. Kairu corrected it himself. Quietly, no one heard. The awakening didn't happen in battle, not in a moment of danger. It was during a rainstorm, at 3 in the morning, in a cheap apartment on the edge of the city. Kairu was lying on the floor, because he had sold his bed to pay the entry fee for a third-class guild that rejected him anyway. Rain drummed against the window, and suddenly he felt it, not with his ears, with his entire body. Every drop, their trajectories, their weight, their temperature, as if water had suddenly spoken to him in a language he had always known but never heard. He raised his hand. A drop on the glass froze. The hunter system records a rank at awakening once at age 17. Reassessment is not permitted. It's considered an axiom. Kairu received E rank at 17, and that was supposed to define his fate forever. But the system failed to account for one thing. Sometimes an ability doesn't awaken on time. Sometimes it waits. Waits until a person has fallen low enough, until nothing is left but the core of who they are. Water is not an element of attack. Every hunter knows this. Fire burns, lightning strikes, earth crushes, water flows, water goes round. Water seeps into places nothing else can reach. Combat water mages are considered rare not because few are born, but because most give up, before understanding where the power of this element truly lies. The power of water is not in breaking things. The power of water is in finding the crack. Kairu spent the next 8 months alone. No guild, no mentor. He entered C rank rifts alone and walked out. Entered B rank, walked out. The hunting community didn't notice him, and E rank solo doesn't show up on anyone's radar. He didn't register victories, didn't file for reassessment. He simply learned. He learned from the water. He came to understand that water remembers the shape of every vessel it has ever filled, that it takes any form, but never loses its nature, and that the most terrifying weapon is not a strike. It's pressure. Constant, steady, unstoppable pressure that eventually destroys even stone. The first time anyone noticed him was in a rank rift at the port of Enchan. A team of 7 hunters had gone in and gotten stuck. An 8th level monster, water type, had sealed the exit by flooding the lower levels with salt water under pressure. The team sat on the upper tier and waited for death or a miracle. The miracle came through a side entrance, one person, no guild markings, wearing cheap second-hand armor. Kairu walked into the water up to his chest, closed his eyes, and began to listen. The monster attacked, a wave 3 stories high. Kairu didn't dodge. He met it with an open palm. And the wave stopped, didn't scatter, didn't break. It simply froze in midair, as if it had forgotten what it was supposed to do. Then it turned, and struck the monster with its own force, multiplied by every ounce of pressure it had been building for hours. The team survived. Kairu was gone before they could ask his name. But the system recorded everything. 2 weeks later, representatives from the Hunter Association arrived at his door with reassessment papers. He didn't open it. A month later they came again, with representatives from the 3 largest guilds in the country. He opened it, looked at them, at their expensive armor, their badges, their habit of filling every room they entered. 3 years ago, he said, one of you didn't remember my name. They were silent. Now you all know my name. He took the documents. That's all I need from you. The S-rank rift in the bay would close in 1 hour. After that, a wave would swallow 200 kilometers of coastline. 4 guilds had refused to enter. Scouting losses were 100%. The monster inside had been classified as a water god, a category that existed only theoretically in official association documents. Until today, Kairu went in alone. Not because he was a hero. Not because he wanted glory. He went in because he had been standing at the monitor, looking at the map of the coastline, and he saw small dots of cities. Small dots, each of which held someone who had once stood against the wall at a briefing, someone who had sold their bed to pay a registration fee, someone who had heard their name confused with a stranger's. The water inside the rift was rising. The pressure was so intense that his armor began cracking on the third level. The monster was massive, not in body, but in presence. Kairu felt it like a storm beginning beyond the horizon, already moving toward shore. And there is nothing you can do but stand and receive it. But Kairu didn't stand to meet it. He lowered himself, lay down on the bottom, closed his eyes, and began to listen, not to the monster. He began to listen to the water, all of it, from this dungeon to the ocean, from the ocean to the clouds, from the clouds to a raindrop at 3 in the morning on the window of a cheap apartment. He drew it all in, not with force, but with a question. How do you flow? Where do you want to go? And the water answered. It had always wanted to go down, toward the center, toward equilibrium. Kairu gave it that, with a single motion. Like opening his palm, he redirected all the pressure inside the rift into one point, into the center of the monster. Not an attack, not a strike, simply equilibrium, a return to what water wants to be. The rift closed 7 minutes before the deadline. When Kairu emerged on the surface, cameras, guilds, and association officials were waiting. Someone was already shouting about the greatest water mage in history. Someone else talked about S-rank, national treasure, contracts. Kairu walked past all of them, sat down on a concrete barrier by the water, pulled from his pocket his old U-rank hunter ID, the one issued to him at 17, looked at it for a long time, then lowered it into the water, and let it go. The card didn't sink. It floated slowly, with the current drifting further from the shore, as if it, too, had somewhere to be. The most powerful things in the world are not those that break. They are those that find a way through. Water doesn't ask permission to flow. It simply flows until it finds a way out, until it reaches the sea. That is why it was considered the weakest element for so long. That is why it outlasted all the others.